Good morning. So we are on page 210, or sorry, 209, second paragraph of the left-hand column. So we're trying to address the repeated language of the way the Jews are described vis-a-vis their enemies in the battle for over Hanukkah, in the Alanissim. Hands in the mighty and the strong, hands of the weak, we understand that miracle. Many in the hands of the few, also miracle. The next three don't seem to add anything to the miracle component. Righteous in the hands of the wicked in the hands of the righteous, pure, impure in the hands of the pure, wanton sinners in the hands of those who occupy themselves with Torah. So yesterday we learned a suggestion from one of the commentaries which says that this is an explanation for why they're weak. They're weak because they're Torah studiers. Because there's Torah studiers, they don't work out. They don't engage in warfare. They don't practice war strategies and tactics. So this is the reason. So a number of problems with this explanation. First of all, who cares why? The point is they're weak.
Then we say Colossians doesn't have a problem.
Doesn't have a problem.
Okay, it makes sense with the
yeah, weak. It makes sense. But occupiers, those who occupy the Torah study seems to not. To which there was a just suggested explanation. Well, it helps because it explains why they're weak.
Okay.
To which they're asked, first of all, who cares why they're weak? The point is they're weak. Number two, it only explains one of the three. Pure and impure, and righteous and wicked is not explained by the fact that they're Torah studiers, because you can have a righteous person and a pure person who's in business. And number three, most importantly, there's only a select few of the soldiers that may have been such as scholars at such level that it weakens them. So clearly, the description of those who occupy themselves with Torah studies is broader than just people who are occupied 24/7 with Torah study, because that couldn't have been the entire army. How many people are full-time occupied in Torah study to the point that they're weak because of it? You imagine some people there are business people or this or that, and they're also righteous. And like I think Yeshua, you pointed out yesterday, the description of pure couldn't be halachically pure. How many people are halachically pure? Kohanim, who are running into the temple all the time, are halachically pure. Most are pure when they have to go to the temple. Everybody was halachically pure is also very difficult to imagine. I think you're right about that. Everybody doesn't say that, but I think you're right about that. And by the same token,
I think it's also about the righteous too. Because
righteous as well. Is it a righteous of Tanya? How many people are righteous of Tanya? Righteous in the general sense. They're good people.
Righteous in Tanya, you're not going to find many.
Yeah, that's my point, exactly. So the tzaddik definition here is not a strict definition of pure tzaddikim. That's very few. It means generally speaking, these people are tzaddikim. Same thing with pure. Generally speaking, they're pure people in the broad sense. And the same thing would be with those who occupy themselves with Torah study, also in the broad sense, not the unique few who are so involved in Torah study that they're weakened by it. That's the main problem with this explanation. Right, so now we're back to square one with our first question. Okay, so bracket second paragraph, 209, left-hand side. Ubefrat, and specifically, considering that which our sages have said, were it not for King David, who was involved in Torah study, Yoav would not be successful in war. And as Rashi explains in parentheses, within the brackets there, the merit of King David, which is involved in Torah study, stands by Yoav in the wars that he's waging on behalf of King David, right? So King David has the great warrior Yoav, and the Gemara tells us that King David's partnership in the battle is his Torah study. So that's what the Gemara tells us. That if not for Yoav, if not for King David's Torah study, Yoav wouldn't be successful. Even though Yoav is a great warrior. So why is they raising this statement? So explains. Movement from this is understood. During the time of war, it's incumbent upon the sages, Torah scholars, to be even more committed to their Torah study, so that the merit of their Torah study should protect the soldiers. On the contrary, this is dependent the success of the war. What's the Rabbi indicating from this? That actually most of the scholars probably didn't go to war. Most of the scholars probably stayed and doubled down on the Torah study to protect those who did go to war.
But didn't the ones that go to war also have to be?
Oh, therefore, back to our main point, when the Alanism describes the fighters, the Maccabees, as those involved in Torah study, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were like exclusive Talmud Chacham that were their entire
No,
occupation.
they're free of sin.
Or it means that they had maybe that halacha requires an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. Every person, halacha, there's halakha Talmud Torah, the laws of Torah study, as to how much each person is obligated to learn. Most people are not obligated to learn 24/7. They got to work. They have to take care of their families. There are certain people who are Torah and Nasam. Torah is their occupation, right? So they've been making the case that actually the majority of soldiers would have not been on the level of Torah and Nasam, where Torah is their only occupation. And in order to be weakened by Torah study, as that should be the explanation for why they're weak, you have to be so engrossed in Torah study that's your only occupation. So therefore, the explanation offered yesterday is questionable, is being challenged. Yeah, okay. Clear? Seemingly, we have to therefore say, this is what we were concluding yesterday, we just finished saying. When the Alanism says, you delivered wanton sinners in the hands of Torah occupiers, or those who occupied in Torah. The intention is not that all the soldiers were considered part of this class of the sages whose entire occupation, whose sole occupation was Torah study. That cannot be what the Alanism means. But that the leaders who led the battle, they were such Torah scholars that this was their entire occupation. But this could not be the rank and file of every single soldier. Yeah, because the army must have been broader than that. Not enough people, and because again, like you mentioned in the parentheses, those who are involved in Torah study actually have to double down on the Torah study during battle.
It's a big problem they have in Israel right now.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes,
A
indeed.
lot of people don't want to let them double down.
Some people don't. And there are some Rosh Yeshivas, there's some I know different yeshivas, where they are doubling down. And they're adding time to their learning because there's soldiers out war. You guys aren't going to war in their Torah study, and your Torah study is meant to protect them. So good. Those guys are putting their lives on the line and working at all hours of the night. So should you. And there are yeshivas in Israel that have added time to their Torah study because of it.
Absolutely. But there's still that issue that they're trying
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it's on the Torah scholar, it's on the yeshiva world to make this clear that we're doubling down on our learning on your behalf. That's what would seem correct. Okay, continuing the emphasis. It seems more correct to say at bottom of 209. The meaning of those who occupy themselves with Torah. Right, when the Alanism says that Hashem miraculously delivered those who are wanton sinners into the hands of those who are occupied in Torah. Is you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you with me?
Yeah, it's a broader question, but I'll address it after.
Yeah, okay. Hainu, the intention here is not exclusively, meaning those who are occupied in Torah study as their sole occupation. Rather, it's a broad terminology to describe all those who learn Torah. Even business people, who have set times for learning as the halacha describes, in the morning, in the evening, or sometime in the day, or whatever it is. Everybody has their level of Torah study. I'm not ignoring it completely, God forbid. Shekulam, that all of these people who are learning Torah on whatever level, Nikrayim are being referred to in the Alanism as those involved or occupied in Torah study. And as is indicated by the fact, every single Jew, Chayiv is obligated, the Birchas HaTorah, to make the bracha of blessing of Torah, right? Before we do a mitzvah, we thank Hashem for doing the mitzvah. And every Jew is obligated in the morning to make the bracha, thanking Hashem for the mitzvah of learning Torah.
That's funny because the Ashkenazim say last.
Including the version of Ashkenazim, look at footnote 10.
Yeah.
See, if you know Ashkenaz, see footnote 10.
Nice.
If you Nusach Ashkenaz.
Yeah, Nusach Ashkenaz.
The Ashkenaz Nusach, we say, where is it there? We say, it's fine, we say,
Al Divrei
Al Divrei Torah.
Yeah.
And the Ashkenazim say Lasek B'Torah.
La'asek?
Yeah,
That's what they
to be involved in Torah study. Meaning to say, and now that the person making this bracha isn't someone who's it's not as if this bracha, Lasek B'Torah, is exclusive for a yeshiva student.
Why do they do that?
That's their Nusach. That's the nusach. You can look up the sources. It explains there.
Interesting, because
That's
the
the
other,
nusach.
the other brachos were Pregefen, Adi Veter, Tefillin, Mezuzah.
Lehaniach tefillin.
Everything.
Not I'll.
No.
You do amitz tefillin, the head tefillin.
No, but I'm saying like it's all the same bracha. Ashkenazim get one difference for learning Torah.
Actually, Hanukkah is another different one.
Oh, they had Dikner. We say Ladikner Chanukah. They say Ladikner Shel.
Shel Hanukkah, that's right. They say shell, we don't say shell. Anyway, the point here is that at least in the Ashkenazi Nusach, every Jew, even someone who's learning a few lines of Torah, is called Oisik B'Torah. Because we say the bracha Lasik B'Torah. And those who don't say Lasik B'Torah, it's not because we reject the notion that someone who's learning Torah for a few hours is not called Oisik B'Torah. He's called Oisik B'Torah. He's Oisik B'Torah. Oisik means busy with. He's Oisik B'Torah. He's busy with. He's invested in Torah on his level. So when the Alanism says Oisik Seresecha, it includes a broad tent, even people who learn for a few hours a day, as per the halacha requires of them. Yeah, clear. We can say even further, says the Rabbi on page 210. This terminology, those involved in Torah or involved in your Torah, and not and not those who study your Torah. Can here, there are some times when the word Oisik B'Torah, there are a number of times when the sages use the expression Oisik B'Torah, involved in Torah. What does it mean, Oisik, and not learn it? Why not learn?
You have to be involved.
So one way to understand Oisik B'Torah is it's the degree of your involvement. The person is learning Torah so deeply that he's completely involved in it the same way someone's involved in an ASIC in a business. Right? ASIC is a business. Oisik is someone who's involved in a business. So sometimes the meaning is your learning level is so high that you're like involved in it as if it was a business.
It's the complete opposite of the mashal you gave
2 minutes ago.
2 days ago with the businessman. Why when he's doing a business thing, he doesn't get any thought. He's completely involved.
That's the point. He's so involved in his business that he doesn't think about anything else. And that's the level of your Torah learning. And you're so involved in learning, you don't think about anything else.
Yeah.
That's sometimes the way Oisik B'Torah is described. But here the Rebbe is saying, it seems to me correct to say that that's not the meaning here. It's not the meaning here. When the Alanism says those who are occupied in Torah study, it doesn't mean this level. Because again, that's very exclusive to a select few of people who are so invested in Torah study, this is their only occupation. And therefore, Oisik Seresecha, calling people those involved in your Torah study, does not describe the level of their learning. So what does it describe? Ella rather, Koilul Gam, are we with me? With following? Ella rather, Koilul Gam, it also includes Asik mitzvahs, those who are occupied with mitzvahs. Shutat limud, which is the ultimate objective of learning. Limud maybe the demaisa, learning that leads to action. Yeah. So v'zeshenikra oiskim, and this is why they're called occupied in your Torah, loy loimde, not learners of your Torah, studiers of your Torah. Because those who study your Torah, those who are sitting and actually learning Torah. Which this is connected to the person's mind and understanding, his grasp. But someone who's involved in Torah indicates that everything about him is involved in Torah. And this is when he learns with the intention of behaving accordingly. Meaning that all of his actions, and all of his 248 limbs, should be according to Torah. In other words, like this. Someone who is an Orthodox Jew, and he goes to business every day, and every day he does his business and according to the way Torah requires it. Doesn't cheat. He's only honest. Right? His language is clean, and so on and so forth. Is he called involved in Torah right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though he's in business. But his whole business is being done in the way Torah taught him to. So therefore, exactly. So those who are involved in Torah can either mean your level of learning the Torah is so high that this is your only occupation, or it could mean your entire life is dictated by Torah, even though you're not learning. Because you learned whatever you're a businessman, you're what?
No, Adi Torah has then the opposite.
Okay, you're asking a kasha on the nusach of the bracha. That's not for now.
Because Oiske is technically
We're learning that. We're learning the nusach of the Alanism now, right? Oiske seresacha. What's the meaning of oiske seresacha? So one meaning could mean your level. Why are they being Why are they being called Oiskei Seresecha, involved in your Torah, occupied by your Torah, rather than learn the Seresecha, those who learn your Torah? Yeah. So either one of two explanations. Either it means that your level of learning is so high that this is your only involvement. That says that it cannot be the meaning here, because that would be a very select few people. And the army must have been broader than that. So rather, what must it mean? It must mean those whose lives are dictated by Torah. So even when they're not learning in Torah, they're still oisik b'Torah. They're still involved in life in the manner in which your Torah requires. So even when they're going in business, they're doing it according to Torah. Following? And therefore, the oisik b'Torah doesn't even mean learning. It means living a Torah life. Following?
They were able to go to war.
And these are the guys going to war. And this is a very broad tent, because this includes the shoemakers, the garbage cleaners, it includes everybody.
Period where there was a split among themselves where
We're gonna get
some
there.
wanted to follow.
We'll get there. 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 Oh, but okay. But 1 second. Yes, that's true, and we'll get there. But at least those who are fighting the battle.
I would presume everybody was fighting a battle for preservation.
Oh, let's see.
That's an obligation.
So let's see. But we'd imagine. But the Alanism is describing those who are fighting the battle, which means those who are fighting the battle are oiskei seresach, are living a Torah life.
Saying everybody.
Not everybody's required to follow. Okay, let's see.
All right.
Let's see. Required doesn't necessarily mean that they actually showed up for war. Let's see. Let's see already. Let's see. But yet you're touching on a good point. We should put a pin on that because you're gonna get there. Okay, but we understand this language of oiskei seresach now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, bottom right of 210. That says based on this we can explain pshittas simply kushas and mafarshim. There are a number of the commentaries in the Siddur that ask the following question: Lama Omer, why does the Alanism say Zaydim biat oises seresacha? Those wanton sinners, you deliver the wanton sinners into the hands of those who occupy themselves with Torah. And why doesn't the Alanism say davar v'yifuchay, each thing and its opposite, like it says in all the other clauses? Weak, many hands of weak, opposite. Many hands of few, opposite. Mighty hands of weak, opposite. Impure in the hands of pure, opposites. Wicked in the hands of righteous, opposites. Wanton sinners in the hands of occupiers of Torah doesn't seem to be opposites. It should say ignoramus is in the hands of those who occupy themselves in Torah. Because if the word occupy Torah means learning, the opposite of learning is not sinner. The opposite of learning is non-learners. In other words, sinner and not sinner is already covered in righteous versus wicked. So if you're going to say that those occupied in Torah means learning Torah, then the opposite should be described there, not Zaydim. And now we have the answer. Because now we understand, because based on the above, this clause is also the thing and its opposite. Because the meaning of those who occupy in Torah here don't necessarily mean only learners. It's referred to anybody who follows the instructions of Torah, which is the opposite of wanton sinners. Those who sin willingly, Zadain, Zaydim coming from the word Zadain, which means intentionally sinners. Those who transgress Torah study. We clear? Clear on this? Oh, because oiskei doesn't mean here learners. If it meant learners and the opposite Zaydim doesn't apply, the opposite would be, I don't know, ignoramuses or those who ignore your Torah. But because we're understanding that those who are occupied by Torah, not learners of Torah, but occupied by Torah, meaning those who live their lives according to Torah, the opposite of that is Zaydim, those who wantonly sin. So it cleans up. But main point, our question is now back to the beginning. Now on this, what is added to the miracle in the last three clauses? Masarta, you delivered. Tameim biat Torah, impure in the hands of the pure. Rashayim biat tzaddikim, wicked in the hands of the righteous. Zaydim biat wanton sinners in the hands of those who live their lives according to Torah. Those three clauses don't add anything to the miracle component, seemingly, or the battle. Clear? Okay.
But it's just main biyat toheru, Rishon biyat tzadikim.
Yeah.
Then technically it's everybody together.
What do you explain?
Meaning that the ones that are not holy, the ones that are holy, the ones that are not, are all involved in this miracle.
It's saying you delivered them into our hands. You deliver the impure into the hands of the pure.
Oh, so you.
The impures are enemies.
Okay.
The wickeds are enemies.
I thought it was.
Those who are not involved in
all
Torah, the
other
Zaydim are our
words.
enemies,
Okay.
right? But that being the description of our enemies doesn't seem to add anything to the miracle, which is the question of all the commentaries on the Siddur. Okay, let's begin a little bit more. I see that they haven't come out yet, so when they come walking out, we're gonna stop. Yeah. Okay, well, similarly, we can suggest the Mashaka Bays on page 210. Mashaka, so to me, and that which the Alanism says. I keep on saying that, but that which the Alanism says. Morning. Tmeim impure in the hands of the pure, etc. Koya Mashaka is a reference to that which the Alanism says earlier. What did the Alanism say earlier? Quote. When the wicked Greek government occupied Israel, on the Jewish people, they occupied the Jewish people. In order to make them forget your Torah, in order to make them go away from the instructions of your will. End quote. Tahainu. What does this mean? Something that you mentioned yesterday. Not a literal war. It's a spiritual battle. There was decrees, there was a religious persecution. A spiritual battle. Okay. So if at the beginning it says, I thought there's an occupying land trying to kick us out of the land, and we stood up to them. That's not the description. The description is an occupying force, and they imposed religious persecution, and then we fought back. That's the description here, right? Yeah, because it was actually Greek occupation for years without religious persecution before Hanukkah came around. Alexander marched into Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Sometime before Hanukkah, occupied the land.
And then he infiltrated the.
No, he died. The Greek army split up into different regions.
That was the Antiochus.
Antiochus comes later. Alexander is there earlier. Alexander the Greek.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great conquers the whole world, including Israel. No battle, but he conquers Israel. The Gemara describes he's fascinated with Israel because of, maybe we'll talk more about that tomorrow, why he found Israel so fascinating, because they had one God, etc., etc. He was on the, comes from a pagan world where everybody had their own gods. And here's one God for the whole world. He's fascinated by the Jewish people, but he occupies the land. And the Jews live there under Greek occupation. Alexander dies, the Greek empire splits up. Israel ends up under the Seleucids, at least at some point, but it keeps going back and forth between the Greeks that were in Egypt versus the Greeks that were in the Assyrian Greeks. Like Israel keeps going back and forth between different Greek Yerushim, different Greek inheritors of Alexander. And during this whole time, they're living under occupation, but without religious persecution.
Without
assimilation, yes, as we'll learn soon, but not occupation, not persecution. And only once there was a religious persecution, then there became a battle. And that's what the Alanism is describing. When the wicked Greek army stood up to impose religious persecution, then we fought back. It doesn't say when the wicked Greek army came and invaded our land, we fought back. That's not what the Alanism says. That's not true. They came in and invaded our land and we didn't fight back. Only years later, when on the Malchus Yavada Russia, when the wicked Greek army or the wicked Greek occupiers stood up and imposed religious persecution, then we fought back.
That's when they desecrated the temple.
That's correct. That's when we fought back, when there's religious persecution. Not by occupation. Oh, that would explain why these descriptions are here, because that's what's happening in the battle here. The whole battle here is righteous versus wicked, Torah versus wanton sinner. That's the whole battle here. This is another suggested explanation for why these three descriptions are there. It's not about weak or mighty. That wasn't the essence of the battle. They were occupiers before there was a problem.
How many years are you talking about that?
Decades for sure. Maybe even longer. I don't know the decade, but it's a while.
A while.
You can look it up. Well, how long between Alexander the Great and Hanukkah? Look it up. On your phone, look it up. It's okay. It's Gemara for sure, but even before Mishnah. The Mishnah is compiled after the second temple is destroyed. Okay. But the Mishnah is compiled from texts of those who lived while this temple stood.
Yeah.
So the texts go all the way far back, almost as far as Hanukkah.
Hanukkah was by the first temple or the second?
Middle of the second temple.
No.
Middle of the second temple. And it's a little bit before the first names that are appeared in the Mishnah. Some of the early names mentioned in the Mishnah are there who lived during Hanukkah. They're mentioned in the Mishnah. Not so much, because the Hillel Shammai, they come a little bit later.
Okay.
A little after Hanukkah, which is the first Zugos, the first of the pairs. It's a little after Hanukkah. right? So the Mishnah is compiled after the Second Temple period, but then it's compiled from names and texts that come during the Second Temple period, going all the way back almost till Hanukkah. Yeah.
That why some Jews are named Alexander.
Yeah, because yeah, exactly, because he was nice to the
He was
Jews.
nice to the Jews.
And he didn't raise the city to the ground like he did other cities. Other cities he conquered, he came and quashed them before a fight even started.
The Jews.
And Jerusalem did nothing. He was fascinated by the philosophy of the Jewish people, and therefore it was an occupation, but it was a harmless occupation. You know, it was like Russia and Crimea rather than Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Crimea, they walked in, they took over. That was the end of it. It's theirs. In Ukraine, there's a fight. Yeah. So in Jerusalem, they walked in. That was it. Now they're in charge. Done. But it was all this time when the Jews are living under Greek occupation and no religious persecution. Assimilation, yes, but not or persecution. The battle only starts after this persecution. Right? So the description in the Alanism is not the foreign invaders came in and we fought back. No. It's the foreign invaders started to impose religious persecution and then we fought back. That's really the battle here. Yeah? Which is, by the way, there's this thing you see all the time. People say, you see this online, people saying this. Hanukkah is the first Zionist holiday.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. Hanukkah was not about nationalism,
It's a religious.
about religious identity.
'Cause they
It's
were
true
already there.
that Rambam writes, it should be noted, Rambam writes that after the success of the battle, the Jews had their own sovereignty for almost 200 years. That's what he writes. What that means exactly is not quite clear because soon after Hanukkah, the Romans invaded and they became the occupiers. So the Jews were under Roman occupation, right?
After 200 years.
Governing
Not
themselves.
for 200 years, within the 200 years of the Hanukkah,
They were
way before the 200
governing
years.
themselves, but had another.
They were governing
Why would
themselves,
Rambam say
but they had a foreign empire, foreign regime on top of them, the Romans.
Oh, like Canada had England, technically. That could say.
Much more than that. They had to pay taxes and they had to follow rules, and they were able to bribe the Romans to become high priests. Right? This was the corruption of the actually the Maccabean line, and then later the Herodian line. Right? They were very corrupt under the Roman occupation. Right? So I don't know exactly what Rambam means when he says that for 200 years they had their own sovereignty. And this is something the commentaries and the historians discuss exactly what Rambam means. That's not the point of our talk here. I'm just making it clear. But just this notion that it's like the first national identity, Hanukkah is the first national Zionistic holiday, not true. Not true.
But
It was
I
a
never
religious
heard-
war.
You heard that?
Yeah, you see it online all the time.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not true because it was a religious battle. For years before, the Greeks were on top of the Jewish people and the Jews did nothing. When religious persecution started, then they fought back. Okay, so more on that tomorrow, B'ez Hashem.
It's the Chiddush. The Chiddush, because it's not about the occupation, it's about the persecution.
Yes, and we're going to get into a bigger Chiddush that Rebbe is going to give us soon. Even more than just the persecution, as we're going to see.